Hi, everybody. Welcome. They said when the lights get turned on, you go. So we're ready to go. Thank you all, and welcome to Value and Values, Building a High-Performance Company. The fact that there are so many of you in here today, I think, really is an indication of how interested we all are in learning how companies can deliver top performance, either shaped by or infused with a conscience. And on this panel today, we certainly have an array of top-performing companies. We have the largest early childhood education provider. We have the leading global retailer of athletic shoes and apparel, the world's largest media and entertainment company, the world's leader in natural and organic foods, and the leader in enterprise computing, who's changing the way companies connect with customers, partners, and employees. Let me introduce them. Marc Benioff, Chairman and CEO of Salesforce.com. Ken Hicks, Chairman and President and CEO of Foot Locker. Robb, co-CEO of Whole Foods Market. Jay Rasulo, sitting next to me, CFO of the Walt Disney Company. And Tom Wyatt, the CEO of Knowledge Universe US. Gentlemen, thank you for joining us today. And I want to start with a question, and maybe Tom, I'll start with you. To all of you, what is it that makes your companies so highly regarded by their stakeholders? What is the secret sauce, if you will?
Well, it's the quality of the education that we provide 130,000 children every day. We are early childhood education. We are care of children, and quite frankly, the emotional ties that we have with the customer and certainly the children is paramount. So it's a community engagement, it's a family engagement, and then of course it is taking care of and nurturing and developing the children socially and academically.
Yeah, I think, thanks for the compliment first, but I think the depth of alignment around the mission and purpose of the company for all of our stakeholders, I think that has been consistent over the 32 years for Whole Foods, and I hope that translates into the experience that you have at the store and particularly the level of empowerment with our team members. That's the culture of Whole Foods, and that's really the secret sauce.
I think for Disney, obviously, it's a company with an incredible heritage, but at the root of that heritage is really is creativity and the creative storytelling, the methods and technologies we use for that. But we also know that from research, there's lots of other things that people attribute to Disney in terms of why they like the company. They trust it. They think it's good for kids, good for their family. So I have to say it's sort of both the product and then the consistent message that we try to deliver from a trust perspective.
I think the best assortment of sneakers in the world tailored to each market, and 30,000 great people who are out there that love the product, love the customer, and love to serve the customer.
Well, for those of you who don't know, Salesforce.com is the largest provider of customer relationship management systems in the world today. And last year we grew at a 37% growth on a constant currency basis. We are really a very extremely innovative company. We were voted by Forbes the most innovative company the last 2 years in a row. And we've really focused on how do we use these incredible changes that are going on in the technology industry, things like the dramatic shifts in social networks, mobile technology, big data, the development of communities, as well as how every single one of our customers, including every company that's up on this stage, is becoming a software company, and also how it redefines trust between our customers and their customers. And this continuous focus on innovation continues to be really our passion at the company.
So if you were going to prioritize what drives your performance, and Marc, I'll start with you, is it that continuous focus on innovation? Like, what are the most critical elements for you in terms of delivering performance?
Well, today in our industry, and I think that this is representative of a lot of our customers as well, we're really seeking out incredible and exciting new leadership models and management models. We're trying to go faster than ever before. We're trying to create an open relationship between our company and our employees, our customers, our partners, a higher level of transparency with them that has ever existed, a high level of collaboration, There is such a huge change in how people collaborate. You can see it on public social networks like Twitter and Facebook. How do you bring that into your company, into your partner, into your customer communities? How do you give rise to the individuals in your company that are making a difference in the same way that you see us giving rise to the individuals in major global efforts like things that happen in Arab Spring? And how do we seek alignment? How do we get alignment with our employees faster than ever before? How do we get to these next levels of leadership that we see developing? There's no doubt that the youth that are coming up through our companies have the answers. The kids who are in the 20s and 30s will be the next generation CEOs and management team members are going to run these companies completely differently than how we run our companies today. They'll be using new tools, new management models, new types of software, new types of new vision. You know, we recently had something written up in Harvard Business Review about how we run our company, and I'll just share it with you, which is when we run a worldwide manager meeting, we put one of our, we of course invite our managers in, and you know, I would be hearing, you know, in the halls, well, what's going to happen at the worldwide manager meeting? What's going to happen at the worldwide manager meeting? And I would be happy to tell them, and nothing. Have you been to one of these meetings? Nothing happens in these meetings. But they think it's like the Illuminati getting together with chanting and, you know, this kind of thing. So I said, look, let's do this. We're going to hire this company, Kentucky, and put video streaming in the back of the room. We'll put it on our secure private network. We'll give employees all access. We will put our collaboration platform that our company makes called Chatter on the walls with huge screens, and all employees can participate. And when I got up on stage to then present to the managers, and I also, by the way, bring our top, you know, individual contributors as well to the worldwide manager meeting, when I'm presenting, our slides go into that group. Every employee can participate, and they can chat and share. And that is how we are trying to get things to go faster. I can't wait for people to go back, leaving the meeting, and then they, okay, I'll go tell everybody what happened in the meeting. We don't have time for that. Things have to go faster. You know, we have more significant competitive dynamics today than have ever happened in our industry, and I'm sure in all of our customers' industry. Every one of our customers is going through massive change because of these changes, I think, mostly in the technology industry. And you've got to find these new tenants in your company. You have to give rise. You have to create more cadence, and you need that clarity that comes through those kind of forums to make that happen. And that's how I look at it today. I think it's an imperative. I don't think it's optional. I think if you want performance, you've got to rebuild your systems. You have to rebuild your software. You just can't run on the old, you know, the stuff. You can't play, you know, Windows is dead. Everybody knows it, and yet a lot of our customers are still using it. But just look at the numbers on market share. It's not just a fantastical statement, it's an empirical statement today. And yet we still are running our companies on these old technologies like Windows and so forth and so on.
Windows is dead, you heard that here.
No, I've said it before, don't worry. It's...
So for Ken and Tom, you two are leading turnaround processes at both of your companies. So what are you doing? You came into a company up and running that needed some help. So Tom, why don't I start with you? What do you think has been most successful now at driving that turnaround?
It's totally people. We have an organization that's 30,000+ individuals, of which 28,000 of them are teachers. And they're the ones on the line. And the experience that is felt in our center, the experience felt by that teacher's interaction with the child, the center director's interaction with that family is the most important thing we do. I tell this story all the time, and those that work for me out in the audience are probably going to die for me saying this. But I used to work for Old Navy, as you know, Willow. And in Old Navy, 30 million people came across the lease line every month to shop for products in our stores. But the most loyal customer only came 7 times a year, which in the apparel business is good. We see our customer twice a day. We see them when they drop their most precious asset off in the morning and when they pick their child up in the afternoon. So for me, when I came to the company, and it is a turnaround, there was a need to raise engagement. There was a need to filter and improve talent. There was a need for clarification. There wasn't a strategic plan. There needed to be a strategic plan. There needed to be, as we called it, a North Star, because we had 30-some-odd thousand people going in many different directions. And Walter, you mentioned culture, and I believe in that a lot. Certainly believed in it, Old Navy being a fun, quirky brand. But when I look at this business and look at the awesome responsibility we have for taking care of children and developing them for many, many years. In fact, we've even gotten studies lately that show that a child that's gone to KinderCare, for example, one of our 3 brands, actually fares better in kindergarten readiness than all the other children of a given state. We're in the process of actually going to all the states and getting that kind of a comparison. But that's what we do. That's our purpose. So we've spent a lot of time. We spent a lot of money with Gallup, both on an employee engagement survey, which didn't occur here before. We're reacting to that. We're spending a lot of money with Gallup on talent assessment. To be sure, as Marc spoke about earlier, you've got to bring these young leaders along, and we need to do that better. We're spending a lot of time on onboarding people, setting them up for success. So that's the approach we've taken. And that, along with a very, very clear strategic plan, has helped us gain some traction.
That North Star, is, as you call it.
Yeah, it's fun.
Well, it really is the people. I tell people all the time, I don't do anything. I mean, if I don't show up, I come to...
You do this, you're doing this.
Well, that's what I say. I come to LA for the day that store's still open. You know, we're making money. Store manager doesn't show up. You know, the buyer doesn't come in. We don't buy the goods, and we don't serve the customers. So my job is to make sure that we've got the right people in the job in the right direction. And the team, the executive team that's at the company now, with one exception, besides myself, are the same people who were there before I got there. Now, they're in different jobs, and a couple of people left, but they're the same people. But what we did was we changed the way we worked, and it was a very top-down environment where everybody was told what to do. And we've changed that, and now we say, here's what we want to accomplish, and giving them clear directions. We did the same thing. In fact, I appreciate you saying, you know, our vision to be the leading global retailer of athletically inspired shoes and apparel. So everybody knows what we want. We have our strategies, our goals, and we give everybody a little card, and you know, so down to the sales associate, they know what it is, and they work towards that. And I think having that clear direction and people knowing that they are responsible for it, rather than play the Army game where you tell me everything I need to do, and I'll do it, and I'll be successful and you won't, because you'll forget to tell me something. And we now have them responsible and people working with a clear vision, and you know, so far it's working.
So what role does, however you want to call it, do you want to call it corporate social responsibility, values? In your case, you frame it as being mission-driven, play in the creation of a successful brand and in your ability to deliver performance and, on that brand. Walt, I'll start with you, because your values are your brand. In a lot of ways.
Right. That's good. But can I just pick up off something Marc was saying earlier, which is that this panel is about creating value for in the company, growing the company, and this is an environment. The environment today is more dynamic than I've ever seen it in all my 30 years in retail. And it's to say retail is going to change more in the next 5 years than it changed in the last 50. And that's because the customer's changing. Not only do you have the boomers, the Xers, and the millennials, and you've got business quickly shifting. Accenture tells me that 30% of the retail business will be done by millennials by 2020. So you've got a rapidly shifting customer base. You also have technology changing very rapidly, as Marc said, because the adoption cycle for technologies continues to shorten. So you've got this, and particularly in retail, anything that you do can be copied the moment that you do it. So where is the enduring value? It is in the people, it's in the depth of purpose and the values that they hold. And so our particular approach to creating the business is to say, all right, we're going to regionalize the operation of the company so that the intelligence is distributed, the decision making is distributed to where the action is, right? Not the right to borrow money or to sign a real estate site or to screw around with the values, but the right to operate, to serve the customer. That should be distributed, right? And so you're doing that, and you're given the ability to maneuver, and then you combine that with a culture of empowerment, which is a fundamental decisions companies have to make. Are you going to be a control sort of company, or are you going to be an empower company? And that creates the cycle of innovation through collaboration spreads, and that's Whole Foods' approach.
So what does a culture of empowerment look like at Whole Foods?
It looks like you actually give people the responsibility to make decisions, and you give them the resources to do that. An example for you, for example, our store managers can spend $150,000 on their own authority against, there's parameters, but they can spend that without checking for permission. Okay, so there's actually, if you give them authority but you don't give them the resources, it's meaningless. So it's got to be meaningful empowerment. But right on down, I'll give you an example right here in Southern California. One of our marketing team leaders had a customer come in whose son was was blind, 7 years. And she on her own created Braille tags for that customer because her mother wanted the child to have an experience of shopping a grocery store. And those tags have now gone to the Braille Institute in Boston. And she did it completely on her own. And I think if you can create an environment where those sorts of things can happen and happen genuinely, then I think you're going to go, to Mark's point, the whole thing here is your ability to evolve faster than the next person. And your ability to evolve faster than the next person rests on the quality of your people, the quality of your culture, the quality of the empowerment, as I see it.
Willow, can I just, as Walter said that, give you another example? That was a compelling example. We have a center in Portland, Oregon, that the center director got a phone call one day from a potential customer. And the mother had an autistic little boy. And she looked for a long time, months, trying to find some place to develop that child, care for that child while she worked. And no one, when they found out that he was autistic, no one was interested. Called one of our centers. The center director said, absolutely, we would love to have your child. And that literally, she dropped the phone. She went to the center to tour it, and it was a suggestion of the center director to do so. So they could get to know each other and sort of experience what was going on. And that child's still there. The mother literally is such a brand advocate of our companies because we helped her extend that child, and by being in that social setting, he's developed quite nicely. So to your point, Walter, when you can actually give that center director or the store manager or whomever the empowerment to do what's right by the community she serves and the family she serves, it's pretty powerful.
Right.
So Jay, when we look at Disney doing what's right, the values, and the value, the bottom line reports up to the same guy. That would be you. Why does Disney have it structured that way so that the corporate social responsibility piece comes up through the CFO?
Yeah, well, as my fellow panelists have said in various ways, shaped, and form, to be successful, ultimately successfully financially and strategically, you really have to have a match between the authentic nature of your message that is delivered in your products, but also delivered by all your employees and delivered by the CEO of the company. And there has to be, for Disney, that authenticity is amazingly important. We as an entertainment company are in an incredibly competitive space. There are many people who have the wherewithal to create the kinds of products we create. But our adherence to customers and their adherence to Disney is a lot based on the fact that they always know what they're going to get. So when a Disney movie comes out as the Disney brand, you know what you're going to get. You know you're not going to be embarrassed to take your child there. Hopefully, if you're consistent and you walk the walk and not just talk the talk, when you produce products and you trace the supply chain for that product through its many steps, you're not going to find kids in an underdeveloped country that are putting together your products. You're not going to find your products being produced in a way that is not authentic to the message that you deliver, that we're about the better things in life, an optimistic view in life, and something that you constantly want to expose your kids to. So because this is so core to Disney, it's very hard to vest the power to make sometimes very tough decisions. And I'll make no excuses. Sometimes these are very tough decisions that go to the core of very successful business models, that if you want to cut out certain activities, whether it's environmental activities, whether it's labor activities around the world, and there are a list of many more, if you want to cut these out of your value chain, it can have a very big financial impact, at least in the short run, on your company. Now, at Disney, we happen to believe that adhering to those values is actually accretive to the value of our company, but it's very hard to vest that in somewhere in the company that isn't wrestling with the other side of the equation, which is how do we continue to grow? How do we potentially walk away from very successful business opportunities to adhere to our values? So it kind of meets up with me or with the CFO role of the company, because sometimes some pretty tough orders have to be issued, and sometimes they have impact.
So I know Walter has been faced with this challenge quite specifically as well, but before I go to Walter, can you give us a specific example of when the bottom line and doing right were at odds with each other and how you resolved it? And I'm thinking maybe the cruise ship might be a good example.
Yeah, our cruise. So we have a cruise business at Disney, and it is scores off the scale on value and entertainment and all great stuff. Well, it so happens, those of you who are involved in environmental activities may know that cruise ships, not so much passenger ships, but all ships, ocean-going vessels, emit an incredible amount, have an incredible carbon footprint. They use a fuel, and they have propulsion systems that contribute mightily to the carbon gases around our planet. And so we wanted to expand this business, but there has yet to be discovered the technology that will yield a cleaner experience, a cleaner footprint for the business. So what we decided to do, and this is not only in the cruise business, but all of our businesses, is that we literally impose a carbon tax on our business units that has to be recognized in their capital request for the entry into a new business or a modification of their business. And one of the costs that they've got to consider in going forward with that business is the cost of us today buying offsets to the carbon footprint that they create. So that hurts their returns. My experience is that general managers don't like to be taxed on anything. So their response is that they try to innovate around the problem. They try to figure out, what am I going to do to lower this carbon footprint? And it suddenly becomes worth it for them to invest in innovative technologies that will improve their footprint over time, because at least internally, and by the way, for most of you out there, most managers mostly care about internally, they will get rewarded for that investment in innovation to lower the footprint of their business. So, it's not the optimal thing to buy offsets today. We do it. It's optimal today, but the goal isn't that. The goal is to really innovate and change the business model such that you don't have to worry about that.
Now, Walter, I know that you've had examples at Whole Foods where you've really had to struggle with these two competing factors. You want to share one with us?
Yeah, well, I mean, a simple one is really the seafood standards. We do pride ourselves on having the highest quality standards in the supermarket industry and the highest level of transparency as to where the food's produced. But a few years ago, we found out that our tilapia was being produced with a use of a female hormone, and we don't have any hormones in our products, so we had to discontinue it the next day. And you just have to. This is how you build the trust in your brand, is by making the hard decisions that line up with your values. And it's not just for your customers who are looking to see whether you're going to do this. It's also your team members. We have 78,000 folks who work for Whole Foods. They are looking to see whether you are going to walk your talk, whether you're going to mean what you say. And when you make those types of decisions, that's a small one there. They are affirmed that in fact you are who you say you are. And we did parlay that forward into creating a full transparency on our seafood, and we announced it last Earth Day after 2 years of working with our fishermen partners, that we were going to discontinue red-rated seafood, which is not fish being sustainably. And so we actually stopped on Earth Day. And I can tell you that day I probably received 150 emails, and mostly from young people, which was really extraordinary, about how much they appreciated and supported the fact that we would take a stand. And I think those types of decisions, yes, you may walk away from some business, but you walk into greater trust and authenticity with your brand.
And can you share a little bit with us about the decision-making that went into your labeling of GMOs, genetically modified organisms?
Right, sure. So what Will was talking about is about a month ago we announced that we committed to full transparency on GMO products within 5 years, so 2018. And it's a complicated subject that's got all sorts of this and that, but essentially the metrics of the decision were around within our particular executive team, back and forth, ultimately coming out around realizing that whether some people are for, some people are against, some people are sideways, the science is inconclusive. But what was very conclusive for me was the customers continuing to say, we sort of expect you to take a stand on this. We are actually disappointed you have not yet done it. And so in the end, our decision was to declare for full labeling, which is the customer's right to know and greater transparency. You look at this thing that just happened in Bangladesh, right? I don't know, some of you may have seen the article in the Financial Times, an editorial on the ethical responsibility of companies, because many of the, we're not in the clothing business, but many of the clothing companies have sort of, well, it's over there. But I think the future, and Marc kind of made this comment too, is it's all going to be accountability and transparency. There's going to be nowhere to hide. In fact, you're not going to want to hide. You want to wear your transparency as a badge of honor. This was an ethical concern in terms of people losing their lives. But in the case of GMOs, it's just a matter of, I don't know whether the customers led us or we followed, but it was, in the end, that's where we came out. So,
but you look at...
I don't know. It may well, there's a risk. It may well, nobody else may follow us. We may be at 5 years and have some players say, I'm not going to do it, so I won't be in your store. We may lose some sales. There's a fair amount of risk in this decision.
Bangladesh is a good example, I think, of what we as industry have to do. I was on a panel, or watched a panel earlier this morning, and they were talking about capital in developing countries, and they talked about money and corruption. They talked about resources and the environment, but the thing that they didn't talk about were the people. And contrary to what some people think, is that for sure in the United States, the companies want to do what's right. And making sure that we do that, we employ a lot of inspectors and people in. In fact, the factory that had the fire 3 months ago, our manager from Hong Kong visited that factory. Wow. And she walked through it and said, we're not going in this factory. And the next day they had the fire. So we were, fortunate, but we have to all work hard and want to make sure that the people are getting treated fairly. And that's probably one of the most important things that we have to do, in terms of other countries, because we impact them, is make sure that we're being fair and we're paying. And yes, there may be a slightly higher price in the short run, but in the long term, we'll have more places that we can go and produce, and it'll be more competitive.
Now, you said something interesting. You said that most companies here in this country want to do what's right, and I'm sure that you all would agree with them. Marc, you interface with a lot of companies. Do you think that's accurate?
Well, our approach is quite a bit different. When we started Salesforce.com 14 years ago, the day that we started the company, we put 1% of our equity, 1% of all of our employees' time, and 1% of our profit into a 501c3 public charity. It was very easy at the time. We had no equity, we had no profit, we had no time with our employees. But today, now we have 11,000 people. We'll do approximately $4 billion this year in revenue. We have a $25 billion market cap approximately. And so that value has been able to kind of been given back to the community in an aggressive way. Our employees get 6 days a year paid off for volunteerism. We run almost 20,000 nonprofits and NGOs on our data centers and on our systems for free, no charge. And we've given away tens of millions of dollars, and we'll give away an additional more than $100 million in the next 5 years. And in addition to that, I've given away $100 million personally to build a new children's hospital in San Francisco. What I found is that, nothing as a CEO, as an employee in a company, as a manager, makes you feel better than philanthropy. I like to say philanthropy is the best drug I ever took. Nothing is going to make you feel better than philanthropy. And integrating that in your company is what serves your employees. It makes them feel better. It gives them a reason for being there. It shows them it's more than just building the next great software company or the great next industry or whatever you're doing. It's giving back. And that this is a critical part of business. And to do it in a deeply integrated way, that it's not just something that's on the side with your foundation, but it's deeply integrated philanthropy. And in our first day of employment, every one of our employees, when they come to Salesforce, of course, in the morning, they're learning where things are. Bathrooms are over here. The check-ins over there. At 12 o'clock happens lunch. Then they go out for a half day of selfless service in their first day of employment to a soup kitchen, to a homeless shelter, which we have plenty of in San Francisco, and some other type of selfless service to anchor them right then and there that this is who we are, this is what we do, this is the kind of company we are. And yes, we are the most innovative company in the world, but that is secondary to our approach to giving back. That this is where the innovation starts. The innovation starts by opening up the true cycle of innovation which comes from giving.
The true cycle of innovation comes from giving. Clearly is a message that resonates with your employees. You're consistently on all the lists of best companies to work for. Unlike a Disney or a Whole Foods, your customers don't necessarily come to you expecting you to be a company that does good in the world. So does it really matter to your
Well, they do, actually.
They do?
That's, I think, the number one reason we're able to hire. I think that the way that we've become the number one CRM company in the world, besting Microsoft, Oracle, or SAP, who are all world-class technology companies, is by taking on not just a new technology model, which is creating this concept called cloud computing, not just a new business model by companies subscribing to services instead of buying licenses, but 3, a new philanthropic model and the 1-1-1 model, and the idea that we can create a company that not only is taking from our customers, but is giving back. And in many, many, many of our philanthropic efforts, we are partnered with those organizations. It's a relationship that is about supporting them, and also many of the causes as well that they support we're already involved in. So it's been very exciting, and guess what? It is really easy to do. It's just that most companies do not do it. I don't know why. I can tell you that I went to business school only a few blocks from here at USC, and we did not have any philanthropic or social entrepreneur or giving classes when I went to business school and graduated in 1986. I think that this is a relatively recent phenomenon. I've written 3 books on this: Compassion, Capitalism, The Business of Changing the World, and in my most recent book, Behind the Cloud, there's a significant section just dedicated to how easy this is. We run a website called sharethemodel.org, which shows companies how to do it. We provide free consulting to it. One of our most successful stories is we convinced the founders of Google, Larry Page and Sergey Brin, before they went public, to adopt the 1-1-1 model. When they went public, they now, of course, they have a company that's worth $200 billion. Most people don't realize they have a foundation because of that that's 1%, $2 billion, that's done tremendous work in the world. This is something that's easy to do. It can be part of business. It helps you build higher quality relationships. It also sets the right tone from the top, that this is the kind of company we are. And when you have a values incongruency with an employee or a manager like we all go through, you can point to that and say, this is not who we are, and terminate that employee. And say, we are a different kind of company. We set a different kind of moral standard for how we operate in business, in the world, and as well as with each other.
I will tell you, but basically backing what Marc and others have said about the importance of your employee as you hire more and more millennials, and we're all in the business of that. they really care about this stuff, and they make decisions about the companies they want to work for based on the companies that we do business with. So the counterparty risk that we used to think about, particularly as a CFO, counterparty risk are usually banks and people you do financial transactions with. But the counterparty risk that is beginning to arise by the inspection of your supply chain and asking questions about where your products come from, who your partners are, employees really care about this stuff. They don't want to wake up in the morning and see that you're doing business in a collapsed factory in Bangladesh, or the Tazreen fire produced your products. And I truly believe that employees either breathe a sigh of relief or are horrified when they see that the company is involved in things that they feel bad about, and their neighbor over the fence is going to say, hey, I see your company's producing an XYZ. What do you think about that? I think it makes it tough.
So Ken, I know you came in and created a set of values, and like many here, you also hire a very young workforce. First of all, how did you come in? And it wasn't in your DNA as it was for Marc's company. You came in and layered it on over an existing company with a revised strategy. So how did you do that, and what's the effect been, particularly on recruiting and retaining the young people that you have working for you?
We came in and worked on developing a strategy, what we wanted to do, the typical business school stuff, but we also knew we had to set some values, and literally went around and talked to people in stores all around the company, around all the globe, and I was joking with one of our district managers the other day, and he was a store manager at the time, and the store manager who replaced him, and I said, you know that Ronnie helped write the values of the company. And he goes, what do you mean? He says, yeah, he was sitting, in the office, and we talked about what we wanted. And the interesting thing is, throughout the company, we had different groups that came back, and they're all basically the same. We want to be excellent. We want to treat our people well. We want to have teamwork. We want to have community. And interestingly enough, the people in the United States were very concerned about community outside of the United States, because they said, well, they don't quite view it the same way we do. And surprisingly, the people in the outside the United States got it better than the people in the United States did, and they really do view the community. So through that, we had a bottoms-up, developing the values. We went out and communicated it, and we continued to communicate. You cannot, and you've heard it here over and over again, over-communication of values is an oxymoron. You have to live them. You have to, if somebody doesn't get them, they have to go. In fact, one of the members of the executive committee didn't live the values, and he's gone. He's enjoying life somewhere else. You have to continue to publish them. In our communications, we send out and we talk about a different value, and we did some things. We gave all of our associates a personal day for community, and said, I don't really care what it is you do. It may be picking up the trash outside of your house, or it may be doing something for something you belong in, but we'll give you that opportunity. And people ask, do I need to bring a note in? And I said, well, if you're going to lie about doing something good, then we got a whole nother problem. So, I'm going to be today's my community day. Fine. And we started doing.
Do you do a community day?
I do several community days.
What do you do?
Well, for one thing, we give out shoes. We do a couple of things. We actually do the Fred Jordan mission here, and we do different things to help people. And our focus is on kids. And so we started doing scholarships. And I've envisioned that MasterCard commercial where people, the 52nd president of the United States, and they go all the way back, not to the train station where he meets the girl, but to, I got my Foot Locker scholarship. And we encourage people, both our associates and our customers, to get an education. Of our 99 district managers at Foot Locker, 97 of them started out part-time in the stockroom. And so living the values of the company, providing the opportunities, were things that came from the bottom up. And so they were actually pretty easy to communicate. And they were things the people came to us with for the most part. And those who didn't come with them, you know, they've left.
Marc, one of the things that you all do, as I understand it, is when you hire new employees, in addition to looking for a basic skill set, you screen for an interest in giving back to the community. Is that so?
It's not really a dominant focus of what we're doing. I think that, you know, what we find is we naturally attract those people. That has been a major differentiator for us. I mean, because we give them, I mean, it is not, we run, I've mentioned this collaboration service that we run internally now several times. One aspect of that is the employee's ability to go self-select into one of these service groups. So they might want to go to, we're building a monastery in Bhutan. We're building a school in Africa. We've had a lot of success in these schools in Africa. We're doing things in San Francisco. Maybe I'm in Ireland. We, of course, have employees. We're a global company. We have employees all over the world. Employees have the ability to find each other, to aggregate, to create that community, to share, to identify what they're going to do, and then go make it happen. So, you know, we're attracting those employees. More than 90% of our employees participate in these programs. So this is not something that just sits on the side. It's actually used. And again, we set that cadence, philanthropic cadence, right from the beginning. And I do think it's a critical part of who we are and how we run the organization. I was at Oracle for 13 years before this, and you know, it's a very successful company. And when I was at Oracle, we grew it to $9 billion. And then since I left Oracle, it's grown to $40 billion. It's a fantastic software company, tremendous CEO, has run the company. And I started the philanthropy and foundation inside Oracle. And one day I was putting computers in schools, or putting computers in these schools in Washington, D.C. McFarland Middle School, I remember very well. And I'd sent my team out there at the behest of Colin Powell, a former Secretary of State and Chairman of the Joint Chiefs. And he said, adopted the school. Can you put computers in a network in the school? I said, sure, we'll go do it. So we get out there, and we're from San Francisco, and we didn't realize it's 110 degrees. It's Washington, D.C., 3 sets of stairs, no elevators. We got the computers there, and networks. We call the general. We don't know how to get this done, because we have a problem. He said, what's that? He said, well, we've got our foundation people there, but we put a request out to our Bethesda office because we have a couple thousand people there, and they didn't show up. It's like the end of the quarter. They got things they're doing. And honestly, they just did not realize that philanthropy is part of what that culture was, because it wasn't part of the culture. It's not that it's a bad company. It's just not part of the culture, okay? And so he's like, yells at me, Colin Powell yelling at me, jamming the phone down. And then my team calls me back 5 minutes later, and they said, well, we have good news. And I said, well, what's that? And they go, well, a battalion of Marines just arrived here to help us. And I said, it's good to be a general. So, you have to think about this from a position of who are you, you've kind of heard it from each one of these executives in a slightly different way, but I'll phrase it like this. A brand is a collection of memories. Your customers, your employees, your partners, they're remembering who you are, Disney, Whole Foods, Foot Locker, whatever it is, by the experience that they've had in your stores, in your parks, in all aspects of your business. Could be online, could be offline, could be one visit with one employee. And that brand, bam, it could get affected just in a moment. We've all had that experience where we've had a world-class experience and we're pissed because of something that's happened, or we see a values incongruency, or whatever it is associated with that brand. I'm sure that there's plenty of stories up on this panel of executives who can tell you that their brands were somehow tarnished by just that one interaction. You really want to get away from that, and the way to do that is through consistent behavior of your employees, that this is part of who you are. This is your culture. This is what you do day in and day out. And those employees, they need ways, word communities come up quite a few ways, to self-aggregate into these communities and to reinforce those brands. So when they have these fabulous creations, like the Braille story is a great example. Here's the Braille story, or there's so many other great stories, but all of a sudden, all the store managers know about that. All the employees know about that moment. You see how one photo on Facebook can change the world. Talk to Brian Moynihan, the CEO of Bank of America, about Molly Catchpole, a nanny not too far from this hotel, who boycotted his fees on Twitter and cost him a multi-billion-dollar product line. Or Wael Golem, the Google employee, who told all Egyptians, come home now, and we saw the fall of the Egyptian government. In the same way, you can have an Arab Spring of your brand or in your employee base, and you'll see CEOs, you've seen this with CEOs too, where you saw it with Netflix, the fall and rise of Netflix caused by the inability of the CEO to manage the social media presence or the brand correctly, brand values correctly. So this is an incredible time. It's a fantastical time. It's a time where technology can help you, it can hurt you, but ultimately it gets back to what are you doing every day to manage that experience.
So Walter, I know that you are continually expanding, adding new stores, venturing into new regions. For example, one of the regions that you're heading into next is Detroit, in an effort to bring fresh organic food to so-called food deserts. How do you do some of the things that Marc and others were talking about and ensure the consistency of that brand or that collection of memories, as Marc put it, is firmly intact in a new place where you don't have an existing community of other stores to draw from?
Yeah, well, actually, what we're trying to do in Detroit is actually stretch the culture, stretch the mission a little bit. But because we've been in Oakland County, which is outside of Detroit, for close to 10 years, we have a number of stores there. But I would define culture, by the way, I think it's important to define the terms, as the mission or the purpose of the company, the values of the company practiced over time. Culture is a living, breathing thing where that's where the interactivity, that's where the connectivity, that's where the humanness of the company lives. It's happening all the time, and it's a yeasty sort of thing that continues to change. But for us in Detroit, I mean, it's just more, I see thousands of communities across the United States do not have fresh, healthy food. That's just a fact. You can go on the USDA website, and they've got a term for it called food deserts, which is a very insulting term for those communities. But this is the situation, and the healthcare, $3 trillion spent in this country, and on an unsustainable pace, and really the only answer in healthcare is ultimately personal responsibility for diet in whatever way that you do that. The alternative is not pretty and it's ugly. So here you have this situation where in Detroit, within the 138 square miles, the life expectancy is 12 years less than outside the city outlines. And so that just happened to be, the story is too long for today, why we started there, but I actually feel a compelling, we have a particular set of skills. We're going there to participate in the community. There's a lot already happening. We're opening our store on June 5th at the corner of John R. and Mack. And what's been really great for me is to see how we've tried to put the community first in this effort. And I know that we are learning as much as we're giving in that community. Our culture is stretching. Not only are we going after the affordability and accessibility, some of you may know our nickname, which shall remain unnamed today, but we're going after these hard issues because we're going after elitism, we're going after racism. Detroit's 90% African American. And so, but this experiment of doing this, trying this, has been a wonderful stretch for us and also a tremendous learning experience. And I think the culture sees it's okay to take risk, but it's okay to provide, to take a step forward and remain open to what you can learn. I don't know if I answered your question, but there you go. So.
Thank you. And then Tom, how do values translate, or how are they infused across different brands under the same corporate umbrella as you have?
The mission and the values are the same. There are different personalities, there's different DNA. When you think about KinderCare, it's the largest footprint in the United States, 1,600 centers, and they have a community-based DNA, and they work with their communities, and that's their approach. When you look at CCLC, Children's Creative Learning Centers, which is our, if you will, child care and early learning group that partners with companies like these around the world, around the country. I mean, I'll give you an example. We take care of all the Cisco kids down in Silicon Valley. They also asked us to put one in Bangalore, India. We did. So the approach we take is that. So One of the things I'd say about our company that I didn't have to change is the true passion around the purpose we serve. Even those that left the company came to the company because they felt like if they could only make a child's life a little better, that was a worthwhile experience. That's why I came here. I've been in apparel for 38 years, and I'd sold my last $5 polo. But one of the things that I think is really great, we tweaked our mission and values, but in essence, the only thing we did in that is strengthen the educational side. Education is the forefront of what we do. Yes, we take care of children. Yes, we want a very safe and very uplifting and aspirational experience for those folks, whether it's their mother, their father, or themselves. But at the end of the day, we take care and we educate children. From that standpoint, and talk about what Marc said, Ken said it as well, Walter, well, actually every one of us has, we have chosen, and to be impactful, we have chosen literacy as our focus. And I will tell you, I inherited that. I didn't bring that here, but we have raised the level of it a bit since I joined, and all of us on the leadership team, and hopefully by that tone, we'll see it down in the company, all of us are getting involved in literacy, whether it's a nonprofit or whether it's a school. We sponsor a couple of schools in the Portland area, for example. Throughout the country, some of our center directors are very involved in their community to do that kind of thing. That's the meaningful connection that we can have with the community, with the family, and it's authentic.
I think one of the things that's important, you've heard it, is, you know, our biggest responsibility, quite frankly, is to our associates and making sure we provide good jobs and opportunities for them. There was a very, great film called Couples Retreat. And if there were 200 shows nominated for Academy Award, it still probably wouldn't have gotten one. But in it, there was one woman who was, a younger woman who was with one of the men, and the three other wives ganged up on her and said, well, so what do you do? She says, I'm 23 years old. I'm this close to being an assistant manager at Foot Locker, and by the time I'm 25, I'm going to be a manager of a Foot Locker. And, I'm sitting there going, hoorah, and, they thought it was funny, but it's really what we can offer people. But the other thing is that the associates and people we work with, they can sniff the bullshit. They know when we're not living the values, when we're not doing what's right, and they come back. On Friday, I got 3 calls from people saying, we've got some stuff from Bangladesh. Was it from this factory? And fortunately, we were able to say no, and we know the factory, and it's a good factory, and they pay much better than that factory. But the people will tell you, and they'll let you know if you're not living the values, and they will get rid of us or force us to change the way we're doing sooner than later, if that's what we tell them.
Willow, can I just say something? Talking about living in the values, can you show everybody what you have on down there? Because these are pretty sharp. The shoes. Oh. Your shoes up there. So look at those things. Pretty good.
My.
Yeah. There you are. Yeah, that's good.
But one of the things we went in, we said, we're a sneaker company. You can wear sneakers every day. And
liberating.
And even with a suit. Then the kids love it. That's what we are.
So we've talked about leadership and value to employees and culture and brand identity. What we haven't talked about is Wall Street. Does Wall Street care about your values? Does it
I
matter
guarantee
to the
you,
street?
if there's a big screw up, and we talked about Bangladesh or something, you get impacted. And all of us have had that moment. So they do care. And in the short term, I think they say they don't care. In the long term, if you look at the companies that perform well in the long term, for the most part, they're the ones who have strong, good values.
Yeah, I don't think that Wall Street has made the direct connection. It's a little bit removed, right? They care about your reputation because they know that your reputation directly links to how profitable you are. When customers start to turn away from your company because of something you've done or something you're not doing, they know that's going to impact your company.
That's the downside. What about the upside?
But they don't, I don't think they yet make the link. I don't think that they understand that investment in your reputation can have enormous payback. And I don't think, let's face it, most of Wall Street is very short-term focused, and you're not going to see the investment in your reputation in 1 quarter or 2 quarters or maybe even a year. The downside, as Ken said, is very obvious. But the upside is it's a longer term. It's culture. It's what you do repeatedly, over and over. And I meet with investors, as all of you do, I'm sure, all the time. I don't think I've gotten ever a single question about what are you doing here that
They
would
don't
be direct.
respond. They don't say you gave shoes here, you gave these scholarships. But it's the people, that you've got better people. The number of people, in fact, here, I've had a couple of people come up and say, I've been in your stores recently, and your people are better than they were several years ago.
Yeah, they see
We
that.
didn't do anything. Your product is better. You're doing a better job. And that's what they see, and that's how they invest in the long term.
Yeah. In the word, no, they don't care. They care about performance, and if your performance, then that's what they're looking for. You meet with investors, and a lot of them will say, every time they'll say, I'm a long-term holder, but they're not actually long-term holders. If you actually look at the duration of their holdings, typically long-term for them is sort of 3 years, and the average equity hold in this country is 6 months. How in the world could you possibly build an enduring company in those sort of time frames? If you started thinking that way, you would not build long-term value. So there's a serious disalignment or lack of alignment between the capital markets, and the only thing they meet is around performance. On the other hand, they're less needy mostly than the other stakeholders, because if you perform, they're pretty happy, and they.
Did you call them less needy?
Less needy, yes, right. Needy, that's probably a pejorative word, but they're less high maintenance than the other stakeholders, because if you perform, that's it. But they really don't care about it, quite honestly. And we're very fortunate. We had a private equity firm here based here in LA, Leonard Green Associates, who is I think the dean of the private equity funds in retail, and they invested in us. They've now exited, but one of the few firms I've found that actually appreciates value and culture and lets you do your work, and they do their work, which is to bring the money in. But they're rare in my experience.
And there are more social investment funds. They're just not big yet, but they will be.
And if you ask the question another way, do we care if Wall Street thinks that? And the answer is no. Because at the end of the day, we have to sustain a company. We have to sustain a culture. We have to sustain an attitude, an obligation, our mission, our vision. At the end of the day, if you don't do that, you will not consistently grow and consistently hire and retain the best talent. So to me, it's job one. What's actually interesting to me, and I wasn't able to sit on the call with everyone with you, Willow, and you called me back, but I said, let anyone else talk about a business model, let anyone else talk about a P&L, let me talk about people. Because that's what's going to sustain KinderCare, it's what's going to sustain CCLC and Champions. It's the relationship they have in that community with that family and with that child, and the output of what they do to develop that child that is the end all of what we do.
Good note. Gentlemen, we have a minute or two left. Maybe, Marc, I'll direct this question down at your end. Is there anything that we haven't gotten to that you think is really critical to this conversation?
Well, I think you've hit on a lot of different things. I think, when I look out at all of our customers, and I think you kind of hear it too, is that what's on the minds of CEOs today is how are they going to become a different type of company even than they are now. Every customer I know is in transformation. It doesn't matter what industry they're in. It doesn't matter the size of the company, the velocity of the company. Companies are changing today. They're changing. They realize that now that we're out of financial crisis over the last 5 years, over the next 5 years, it's all about growth. And how are you going to build the products and the customer relationships and move that top line? You can say that investors don't necessarily care about values. I agree. But what do they care about? Well, they do care about speed. They care about openness and transparency. If there is a problem, they're going to want to know. They care about how you collaborate with them, because it is also a reflection back on how you're going to collaborate with your employees, partners, and customers. I think the way you handle IR is as important as how you handle your sales organization. And they also care about those people in your company. It's said over and over again, and believe me, they keep an eye on all the other people that are around you when you're with them. They want to know who are those people. They look. They're in your stores, they're in your products, they're paying attention, and they're checking you out as a leader. And that's what they're ultimately buying. Yes, they're buying your top line growth, but they're taking a look and saying, am I going to bet on this person? Because at the end of the day, we are in a new world. It requires new leaders and new types of companies, and all of us are trying to get there as fast as we can.
Can I just add to that, Willow?
And we just hit 0-0, so you took a hard out. Thank you. Gentlemen, thank you all, and thank you all for your time today. We enjoyed it.
Homes, places we've grown.